You've finished the antibiotics. With a clean bill of health, you're standing at the edge of the boat, ready to gear up. But surviving sepsis is not like getting over a bad cold. Beating the bacterial infection is only half the battle. The other half is healing the systemic damage that the infection left behind. A general practitioner might tell you you're cured because your blood work is normal in the clinic. But being cleared for daily life on land does not mean your body is equipped to handle the pressure of the ocean. Scuba diving places extreme, silent demands on your body. You're hauling heavy equipment and losing body heat to the cold, breathing gases at high partial pressures, and constantly increasing your cardiovascular workload just to kick against the water. On the left, the basic clinical checklist: no fever, normal bloods. On the right, the scuba checklist: a heart, brain, and lungs capable of intense physiological stress. The trade-off is blunt. Patiently rebuild your physical baseline, or rush back in and risk catastrophic failure. Real dive readiness means figuring out exactly which organs took the hardest hit from your specific type of sepsis and verifying they have actually recovered. Even after the original infection is completely gone, almost all survivors face a shared hurdle before they can dive again: post-sepsis syndrome. This syndrome typically brings severe loss of muscle mass and profound daily fatigue. Your stamina drops, and simply getting through a normal afternoon can feel exhausting. Take those symptoms underwater, and the stakes multiply. Muscle weakness means you might struggle to climb a boat ladder or kick against a current, while the lingering cognitive delay noticeably slows your reaction time. That mental fog translates directly to poor dive execution. You might find yourself chewing through your gas supply faster than normal, or struggling to maintain neutral buoyancy because you cannot focus on your breathing. When you dive with lingering fatigue, minor underwater inconveniences, like a mild current, rapidly escalate into high-risk panic events. You simply don't have the physical reserves to solve problems calmly. To understand your specific risks, we have to look at where your sepsis started. This chart breaks down the pathways, starting with the chest branch. Severe respiratory sepsis often involves acute respiratory distress syndrome or a severe bout of pneumonia. Even after the lungs clear, they often retain structural damage. This can mean reduced overall lung capacity, pulmonary fibrosis, or tiny pockets of air trapping. Underwater, air trapping is incredibly dangerous. As you ascend and the surrounding pressure drops, trapped expanding air drastically increases your risk of suffering a pulmonary barotrauma. Shifting over to the abdominal branch, we evaluate sepsis caused by bowel surgeries, perforations, or peritonitis. The main hurdles here are structural. Healing surgical wounds, potential hernias, and a compromised core mean you might lack the physical strength for heavy load-bearing activities. Without targeted rehabilitation, that residual structural and respiratory damage physically prevents you from safely handling your heavy gear or controlling your ascent. The highest stakes risks come from severe systemic sepsis, the kind that lands you in the ICU and puts direct stress on your kidneys and heart. Acute kidney injury is incredibly common during these intensive care admissions. Long after discharge, many survivors are left with a subtle but persistent impairment. Their kidneys simply cannot regulate fluid balance effectively. Divers are already prone to dehydration just from breathing dry, compressed air. If your kidneys can't compensate, that severe dehydration drastically amplifies your risk of getting decompression sickness. Then there is the heart. This chart maps healthy cardiac output against the restricted pumping capacity caused by septic cardiomyopathy and persistent arrhythmias. When you combine the intense cardiovascular workload of diving with the constricting effects of extreme cold, it forces an already weakened heart muscle to work overtime. If the heart fails to keep up, fluid can back up into the lungs, causing immersion pulmonary edema, or you could experience a sudden, fatal loss of consciousness. Returning to the water with unverified heart or kidney damage transforms a normal recreational dive into a high-probability medical emergency. To ensure you are genuinely ready, the diving medical community relies on a strict 7-stage framework. It applies to all survivors, regardless of your sepsis type. As we can see on this progression matrix, stages 1 through 3 take place entirely on land. You need your blood work normal, no abnormal fatigue, and the ability to walk several miles or complete moderate exercise without symptoms. Stage 4 moves to the water. The benchmark here is specific. You must be able to swim comfortably for 30 to 45 minutes without unusual breathlessness. We'll skip Stage 5 for a moment, moving to Stage 6, which dictates your first dive back. It must be a short, easy profile in warm, shallow, sheltered water with perfect visibility. Executing this strictly controlled dive in a pool or shallow bay is mandatory. It's the only way to safely test your gear handling, buoyancy, and stamina before you ever face the open ocean. This phased progression objectively proves your physical readiness. By testing your limits incrementally, it prevents fatal surprises once extreme pressure is introduced. How quickly you move through these stages depends on your baseline. If you survived a mild infection, like urinary sepsis, and fully recovered with no lasting organ damage, you have a green light. You can self-manage the 7 stages at your own pace, regaining your fitness without necessarily taking on the cost of specialized medical clearance. But if you experienced septic shock, required mechanical ventilation, or suffer from persistent brain fog, you are on a very different path. For you, Stage 5 is a mandatory stop. Before you ever put a regulator in your mouth, you need formal clearance from a specialized diving physician, which usually involves ECGs and pulmonary function testing. Severe cases require more patience, but by strictly following this protocol, you separate temporary limitations from permanent catastrophic risks, ensuring that when you finally do return to the water, you come back up safely.